Bear Cub was trapped in a subway tunnel. What this baby did was shocking. Let us know where you're watching from. If you love my content, consider supporting it with a super thanks. Also, don't forget to like and subscribe. It'll help us to remain in touch with amazing people like you. The evening air hung heavy with the scent of rain as Olivia Mason gently rocked her 6-month-old daughter, Luna, by the open window of their small apartment overlooking Westbrook Station. The rhythmic rumbling of subway trains below had become a lullaby for little Luna, who giggled and pointed her tiny fingers toward the sound whenever a train passed. Outside, autumn leaves spiraled down from trees lining the busy street, creating a dance of orange and gold against the darkening sky. "You love those train sounds, don't you?" Olivia whispered, kissing Luna's soft forehead. The baby babbled in response, her wide blue eyes fixed on the station entrance across the street. Luna had always been unusually attentive to sounds, turning her head at the slightest rustle or whisper. Her pediatrician had called her remarkably responsive, but Olivia simply thought of her daughter as curious, perhaps too curious for her own good. Below the bustling station, in a forgotten maintenance tunnel that hadn't seen proper inspection in years, something stirred in the darkness. A small brown bear cub, no bigger than a medium-sized dog, pawed nervously at the cold concrete floor. Its chocolate-colored fur was matted with dirt and grime, and its usually bright eyes were dull with fear and exhaustion. The cub had wandered through a drainage pipe at the edge of Blackwood Forest, which bordered the western edge of the city, following the scent of discarded food before becoming hopelessly lost in the labyrinth beneath the streets. The cub's mother, a massive black bear known to local forest rangers as Willow, had been frantically searching for her baby since dawn. She had ventured closer to the edge of the forest than ever before, her motherly instincts overriding her natural fear of humans and their noisy machines. Back in the tunnel, the little cub tried again to retrace its steps, but the strange echoing sounds of trains and the unfamiliar smells disoriented the frightened animal. Its soft whimpers bounced off the grimy walls as it wandered deeper into the tunnel system. With each step, the cub moved further from safety and closer to the busy subway tracks where danger lurked in the form of oncoming trains and high-voltage rails. Noah Parker, a subway maintenance worker with 15 years of experience, wiped sweat from his brow as he checked off items on his inspection list. At 52, Noah had seen just about everything in these tunnels, from colonies of rats to abandoned kittens, and once even an alligator that someone had flushed down a toilet. But tonight felt different. There was an unusual energy in the air, something that made the hairs on the back of his neck stand up. Probably just that storm rolling in, he muttered to himself, shining his flashlight down a narrow passage that branched off from the main tunnel. His radio crackled with static as his supervisor checked in. "Section 12 all clear, moving to 13, Noah reported, his voice echoing in the emptiness. As he turned to continue his patrol, he thought he heard something, a sound that didn't belong among the familiar drips of water and distant rumble of trains. It almost sounded like crying, but not human crying. Something animal. Up in the apartment, Olivia placed Luna in her crib for the night. "Sweet dreams, my little stargazer," she whispered, turning on the moon-shaped nightlight that cast a soft glow across the nursery. Olivia closed the window halfway, leaving just enough space for the cool night air to filter in. Thunder rolled in the distance as she tiptoed out of the room, leaving the door slightly ajar. Luna, however, wasn't ready for sleep. She rolled onto her side, her tiny hands gripping the bars of her crib as she stared toward the window. Something called to her, a sound so faint that adult ears might miss it completely, but Luna's sensitive hearing picked it up. It was a sound of distress, of fear, of loneliness. It was a sound that stirred something primal in her infant brain. The bear cub had reached a dead end. A pile of debris, broken tiles, rusted pipes, and crumbled concrete blocked the narrow passage. As the cub tried to turn around, its hind leg slipped into a small gap between two pipes. Panic set in as it realized it was trapped, its soft paw wedged tightly in the unforgiving metal. The cub let out a series of desperate cries, higher and louder than before. This time, Noah definitely heard it. He stopped mid-step, tilting his head to listen more carefully. "What in the world?" he muttered, changing direction to follow the sound. He'd heard many strange noises in these tunnels over the years, but never anything quite like this. A mixture of a whimper and a cry that tugged at his heart in an unexpected way. In her crib, Luna became increasingly agitated. She pulled herself up to standing position, an impressive feat for a baby her age, and began to wail. But her cries weren't the usual hunger or discomfort sounds that Olivia had grown accustomed to. These were different, almost as if she were mimicking the distant cries from below. Olivia rushed back into the nursery, concerned by the unusual tone of her daughter's cries. "What's wrong, sweetheart?" she asked, lifting Luna from the crib. The baby immediately pointed toward the window, her wails intensifying. Olivia carried her to the window, thinking perhaps the lightning had frightened her daughter. But as they stood there, Luna's cries changed to match a sound that Olivia could now faintly hear coming from somewhere below. Something that sounded disturbingly like an animal in pain. The storm was getting closer, thunder booming louder with each passing minute. The first heavy raindrops began to fall, splattering against the windowsill and creating a rhythmic backdrop to the strange symphony of cries. The bear cub below and the human baby above, calling to each other across species and space in a language of shared distress that transcended words. Olivia felt a chill run down her spine as she held Luna closer. "What is that sound?" she whispered, peering out into the rainy darkness. Down below, people hurried in and out of the station, umbrellas popping open like black flowers, completely unaware of the drama unfolding beneath their feet and the connection forming between two mothers' children, one human, one bear, as the storm gathered strength above the unsuspecting city. The night was about to become far more extraordinary than anyone could have imagined, as Luna's unusual behavior would set in motion a chain of events that would leave the entire city in awe. For sometimes, the smallest voices can spark the most remarkable changes, and tonight, a baby's cry might just be the key to saving a life trapped in darkness. Rain pounded against the windows now, streaking the glass with rivers of water that distorted the lights of the city outside. Olivia pressed her palm against the cool pane, trying to peer through the downpour. Luna had not stopped her unusual wailing, and Olivia's concern grew with each passing minute. This wasn't her daughter's normal cry. There was something almost urgent about it, as if she were trying to communicate something vital. "Shh, baby girl, it's just a storm," Olivia whispered, bouncing Luna gently on her hip. But deep down, she knew this wasn't about the thunder or lightning. Luna's eyes remained fixed on the subway station entrance, her tiny body tense with an emotion Olivia couldn't quite name. Across the hall, the apartment door opened and closed with a soft click. "I'm home," called a deep voice, followed by the sound of keys hitting the counter and wet shoes being removed. Olivia's husband, Marcus Mason, appeared in the nursery doorway, his dark hair damp from the rain, concern etched across his face as he took in the scene before him. "What's going on?" "I could hear her crying from the street," he said, crossing the room and placing a gentle hand on Luna's back. As a wildlife veterinarian at the city's Northern Conservation Center, Marcus had a special way with distressed animals, but his daughter's behavior had him puzzled. I don't know, Olivia admitted, her voice trembling slightly. She started about 20 minutes ago and won't stop. And there's this strange sound coming from outside, or below. Listen. Both parents fell silent, straining to hear over Luna's cries and the pounding rain. There it was again. A faint, high-pitched sound that seemed to be coming from the direction of the subway station. Marcus frowned, his professional instincts kicking in. That sounds like... He paused, disbelief clouding his features. It almost sounds like a bear cub. Olivia stared at him. A bear? In the middle of the city? That's impossible. Not entirely, Marcus said slowly, his mind racing through possibilities. Remember that report last week about a mother bear and cub sighted near the western edge of Blackwood Forest, where the forest meets the drainage system? His eyes widened as he made the connection. The storm, drains there, lead directly to the water runoff system that connects to the subway tunnels. As if responding to his words, Luna's cries intensified, and she squirmed in Olivia's arms, reaching toward the window with desperate little hands. You don't think... Olivia began, unable to finish her thought. The idea was too outlandish. I don't know, Marcus admitted, taking Luna from Olivia's arms. But something's clearly upsetting her, and if there is an animal in distress down there... He didn't need to finish. As a wildlife vet, his entire career was dedicated to helping animals in need. You can't seriously be thinking of going down there in this storm, Olivia protested, though she already knew what his answer would be. Marcus gently handed Luna back to her. I have to check. If there's a cub down there, it's in serious danger. From the trains, from drowning if the tunnels flood, from starvation, and if its mother is searching for it. He didn't need to spell out what a desperate mother bear might do if she followed her cub's scent into the city. At least call it in first, Olivia pleaded, following him as he strode toward their bedroom to change out of his work clothes. I will, he promised, pulling on a dry sweatshirt and reaching for his phone. I'll call Noah, too. He's working tonight, right? Olivia nodded. Noah Parker had been their neighbor for years before getting promoted to night shift supervisor. He knew the tunnel system better than anyone. Down in those very tunnels, Noah continued to follow the strange cries, his flashlight beam cutting through the darkness. The sound led him deeper into the maintenance passages, away from the main tracks. Water was starting to seep in from somewhere, pooling around his boots. The storm was causing problems already, and his radio had been crackling with reports of minor flooding in the eastern tunnels. Dispatch, this is Parker, he said into his radio. I'm hearing some kind of animal sounds in the western maintenance tunnel, section 13B. Requesting backup to investigate. Copy that, Parker, came the staticky reply. All available personnel are dealing with flooding issues. Can it wait? Noah paused, listening to the pitiful cries that seemed to be getting weaker. Negative, he decided. I'm going to check it out. Might be an animal trapped down here. Your call, Parker. Be careful. Storm's getting worse up here. Noah clicked off his radio and pressed forward, his flashlight beam sweeping across the tunnel walls. The crying sound was clearer now, definitely animal in nature. As he rounded a corner, his light fell upon a sight that stopped him in his tracks. Holy, he breathed, taking an involuntary step back. Trapped between two rusted pipes was a small brown bear cub, its fur slick with water and grime, one paw caught in a narrow gap. The animal whimpered at the sight of him, trying to pull away, but only succeeding in wedging its paw more firmly in the trap. Noah had seen many things in these tunnels, but never this. He reached for his radio with a shaking hand. Dispatch, we have a situation. There's a bear cub trapped in section 13B. This is not a drill. I repeat, an actual bear cub. The radio crackled with disbelief. Parker, did you say a bear cub? Affirmative, and it stuck. I need animal control down here ASAP, and maybe someone from Wildlife Services. Noah's mind raced. How did a bear cub end up here? And more importantly, where was its mother? Just then, his phone vibrated in his pocket. Noah pulled it out, surprised to see Marcus Mason's name on the screen. He answered quickly. Marcus? Kind of in the middle of something here. Noah, thank God you picked up. Marcus's voice was urgent. This is going to sound crazy, but I think there might be a bear cub trapped in the subway tunnels near Westbrook Station. Noah's mouth fell open. How the hell did you know that? I'm literally staring at it right now. There was a moment of stunned silence on the other end. I'm serious. You actually found a cub down there? As serious as a heart attack, Noah replied, keeping his eyes on the frightened animal. It's trapped between some pipes, and with the water rising from this storm, don't move, Marcus cut in. I'm coming down. I'm a wildlife vet. I can help. Which entrance is closest to you? Maintenance door on the west side of the station, Noah said. But you can't just walk in. I'll figure it out. Keep that cub calm. And Noah, don't let anyone hurt it. These pipes connect to Blackwood Forest. If there's a cub here, its mother can't be far behind. The call ended, leaving Noah staring at his phone, then back at the trapped cub. The animal had stopped struggling, its dark eyes watching him warily. The water level around them had risen to Noah's ankles. Don't worry, little guy, Noah said softly, crouching a few feet away from the frightened animal. Help is coming. We'll get you out of here. Back in the apartment, Olivia watched anxiously as Marcus grabbed his emergency veterinary kit, the one he kept for wildlife rescues. Luna hasn't stopped crying, she said, bouncing their daughter gently. It's like she knows something's wrong. Babies are more perceptive than we give them credit for, Marcus replied, zipping up his rain jacket. The indigenous people I worked with in Alaska believed that infants were spiritually connected to animals in ways adults couldn't understand. They said babies could still speak the language of birds and beasts. Under different circumstances, Olivia might have smiled at her husband's tendency to sprinkle their conversations with the folklore and wisdom he'd picked up during his work with indigenous communities. Tonight, however, the idea sent a chill down her spine. Be careful, she whispered as he kissed her goodbye. Luna needs her father. I'll be back before you know it, he promised, touching his daughter's wet cheek gently. Luna had finally quieted, her eyes heavy with exhaustion from crying. Take care of your mom, Starshine. As Marcus hurried out into the storm, Olivia carried Luna to the window once more. The rain had transformed the street into a flowing river, and few people braved the deluge. Lightning flashed, illuminating the subway entrance where Marcus was now headed. Olivia's heart clenched with worry, not just for her husband, but for the animal he was determined to save. Luna stirred in her arms, her eyes fluttering open. She looked up at Olivia, then turned her head toward the window again. To Olivia's amazement, her daughter made a soft whimpering sound, an uncanny imitation of the cries they'd been hearing. "What are you trying to tell me, little one?" Olivia whispered, brushing Luna's fine hair back from her forehead. Something about her daughter's behavior stirred a memory from her own childhood. A story her grandmother used to tell about children who could speak to animals, who could feel their pain and joy as if it were their own. She'd always thought it was just a folk tale, a pretty story to make children feel special. But what if there was something more to it? Olivia's thoughts were interrupted by a loud crack of thunder, followed immediately by the lights flickering once, twice, and then going out completely. The apartment was plunged into darkness, broken only by the occasional flash of lightning through the window. "Perfect," she muttered, shifting Luna to her hip so she could find the emergency flashlight they kept in the kitchen drawer. The backup generator for the building would kick in soon, but for now, they were in the dark. As Olivia fumbled for the flashlight, she didn't notice the large shadow that moved across the street below, visible only for a moment in a bright flash of lightning. A massive shape that paused at the entrance to the subway station, sniffing the rain-soaked air before disappearing down the stairs. But Luna saw it, and her soft cries began again, more urgent than before. The storm was getting worse, and somewhere beneath the city streets, a race against time had begun. A frightened cub, a rising flood, a desperate mother bear on the move, and a baby who somehow sensed it all, trying to communicate in the only way she knew how. What none of them realized yet was that tonight's events would change their lives forever, bringing them face to face with a truth most adults had forgotten: that the barrier between the human world and the animal kingdom was far thinner than they believed, and sometimes it took a child to remind them of that forgotten connection. Marcus pushed through the heavy service door, his veterinary kit clutched tightly against his chest. The maintenance entrance Noah had directed him to was supposed to be locked, but the storm had knocked out part of the security system, leaving it partially ajar. Water streamed down the concrete steps as he descended into the dimly lit tunnel, his boots splashing in the growing puddles. "Noah?" he called out, his voice echoing off the curved walls. The backup emergency lights cast eerie shadows, barely illuminating the path ahead. The air down here was thick with the smell of damp concrete and something else, something wild and musky that Marcus recognized immediately. Bear scent. His pulse quickened. "Down here," Noah's voice called back from somewhere deeper in the tunnel. "Hurry, the water's rising fast." Marcus pushed forward, following the sound of Noah's voice and the increasingly strong animal scent. The tunnel forked, and he hesitated for a moment before spotting a flashlight beam waving from the left passage. He hurried toward it, rounding a corner to find Noah crouched about 10 feet away from a terrified bear cub. "Oh my God," Marcus breathed, taking in the scene. The cub was exactly as Noah had described, trapped between pipes, one paw wedged tightly in a narrow gap. The water had risen to nearly 6 inches now, lapping at the cub's belly. The animal was exhausted, its cries reduced to weak whimpers. "I've been trying to keep it calm," Noah explained, his normally confident voice tinged with anxiety. "Animal control said they're tied up with emergencies all over the city because of the storm. They won't be here for at least an hour, maybe longer." Marcus shook his head grimly. "That cub doesn't have an hour. The water's rising too fast." He set down his kit and carefully approached, speaking in the soft, soothing tone he used with injured wildlife. "Hey there, little one. We're going to help you, okay?" The cub's eyes, dark pools of fear, fixed on Marcus. It let out a pitiful whine, but didn't struggle as he came closer. "It's too weak to fight," Marcus said, kneeling in the water to examine the trapped paw. "It's been stuck for hours, probably, and it's young, maybe 5 or 6 months old." He gently touched the cub's side, feeling for injuries and assessing its condition. No obvious injuries besides the trapped paw, but it's dehydrated and exhausted. "Can you get it out?" Noah asked, keeping his flashlight trained on the pipes. Marcus examined the narrow gap where the cub's paw was caught. "The pipes have rusted together here. We need something to pry them apart just enough to slide the paw out." He looked around. "Do you have any tools with you?" Noah nodded, reaching into his utility belt. "Basic stuff. Screwdriver, wrench, pliers." "The wrench might work as a lever," Marcus said, taking it from Noah. "Hold the flashlight steady and be ready." Even a weakened cub can be dangerous if it panics. With careful movements, Marcus positioned the wrench in the narrow gap and began to apply pressure, trying to create just enough space to free the cub's paw. The rusted metal groaned in protest. "Come on," he muttered, leaning his weight into the tool. Suddenly, there was a sharp crack as the rust gave way and the pipes separated just enough. "Now!" Moving quickly but gently, Marcus guided the cub's paw out of the trap. The animal pulled its limb close to its body, licking at the raw skin where it had been caught. "That's it, good job," Marcus soothed, giving the cub a quick examination. "Paws bruised and abraded, but no broken bones that I can feel. It should heal fine if—" A deep, rumbling growl cut through the tunnel, freezing both men in place. It came from behind them, from the direction of the main passage. Marcus and Noah turned slowly, their flashlight beams cutting through the dim emergency lighting to reveal a massive shadow at the tunnel junction. "Don't move," Marcus whispered, his blood turning to ice in his veins. "Don't run, don't shout." Standing not 30 feet away was one of the largest black bears either man had ever seen. Water streamed off her dark fur as she stood on her hind legs, sniffing the air, her powerful form blocking the passage they had come through. It was the cub's mother, and she had found her baby. "Mother bear," Noah breathed, his hand shaking visibly as he held the flashlight. "What do we do?" Marcus's mind raced. In all his years working with wildlife, he'd never been caught between a mother bear and her cub in such a confined space. There was nowhere to retreat to. The tunnel behind them was a dead end, and the water was still rising. "We have to let her get to her cub," he said quietly. "It's the only way. We need to press ourselves against the wall and give her as much space as possible. Don't look her in the eyes. That's a challenge. And whatever you do, don't run." Slowly, painfully slowly, they edged sideways until their backs were pressed against the cold, wet tunnel wall. The mother bear dropped to all fours and took a cautious step forward, then another. Her eyes, intelligent and fierce, never left the two humans as she advanced toward her cub. The little bear, sensing its mother, let out an eager cry and tried to move toward her but stumbled weakly. The cub was too exhausted to stand. The mother bear growled again, this time with a note of warning that needed no translation. "Stay away from my baby." "We're not going to hurt your cub," Marcus said in a calm, even voice. "We helped. See, your baby is free now." As if understanding his words, the bear paused. For an endless, heart-stopping moment, she stared at Marcus, then at her struggling cub. Then, with surprising gentleness for such a massive creature, she nudged her baby with her snout, helping it to stand. Marcus's phone vibrated in his pocket, making him jump. The bear's head swung toward him, her lips pulling back to reveal teeth designed for tearing flesh. Marcus froze again, not daring to reach for the phone. "Easy," he breathed, maintaining eye contact with the floor, showing submission. "Easy, girl." The mother bear sniffed the air again, then turned her attention back to her cub, nuzzling it and checking it over. The cub responded with weak little sounds, pressing against its mother's fur. Suddenly, the tunnel was filled with the sound of rushing water, a new surge from the storm drains. The water level around their ankles rose alarmingly fast. "Marcus," Noah whispered urgently, "the tunnel's flooding. We need to get out of here, now." The bear seemed to sense the danger, too. She gently took her cub by the scruff of its neck and turned toward the passage that led back to the main tunnel and the way out. But as she moved, her massive paw slipped on something beneath the water, and she stumbled slightly, causing her to drop the cub. The baby bear splashed into the now knee-deep water with a frightened cry. Without thinking, Marcus lunged forward to save the drowning cub. His hands closed around the small body, lifting it up out of the water. The mother bear roared, a sound so terrifying in the enclosed space that Noah yelled in fear, his flashlight beam swinging wildly across the tunnel. "Marcus!" Noah shouted, certain he was about to witness his friend being torn apart. But instead of attacking, the mother bear held her ground, watching as Marcus gently placed her cub on a higher section of pipe, safely above the rising water. The little bear shook itself weakly and looked from Marcus to its mother, as if confused by this strange turn of events. "It's okay," Marcus said softly, backing away from the cub with slow, deliberate movements. "Take your baby. Get out of here before the tunnels flood completely." The bear seemed to hesitate, her eyes fixed on Marcus with an intensity that made his skin prickle. Then, with one swift movement, she reclaimed her cub and turned toward the exit. As the two men watched in amazement, the bear navigated the flooded tunnel with surprising agility, her precious cargo held safely in her powerful jaws. "Did that really just happen?" Noah asked, his voice shaking. "Did you just rescue a bear cub while its mother watched?" Marcus couldn't answer. His heart was pounding too hard, adrenaline coursing through his veins. He'd acted on pure instinct, the same instinct that drove him to become a wildlife veterinarian in the first place. The need to protect, to heal, to save. "We need to follow them," he said finally, snapping out of his daze. "Make sure they find their way out." But as they sloshed through the rapidly rising water toward the main tunnel, Marcus's phone vibrated again. This time he answered it, pressing it to his ear. "Marcus!" Olivia's voice was high with fear. "Where are you? The power's out in the whole neighborhood, and there are reports of a bear loose in the subway station." "I know," he replied, wading through the flood with Noah close behind. "We found the cub. Its mother found us. We're all making our way out now." "Are you insane?" Olivia cried. "Stay away from them." "The police are on their way, and animal control—" "No," Marcus cut her off. "The bears are just trying to get home. If the police or animal control corner them, someone could get hurt, the bears or the people. We need to help them find a way out that leads back toward the forest." There was a moment of silence on the other end. Then Olivia said, "Luna won't stop crying. She's been inconsolable since you left. It's like she knows something's wrong." Marcus thought about his daughter's strange behavior earlier, how she had seemed to hear the cub's cries when no one else could. "Maybe she does know," he said quietly. "Stay inside, keep the doors locked. I'll be home as soon as I can." He ended the call and turned to Noah. "We need to get ahead of them, redirect them toward the western exit. It's closest to the drainage system that connects to the forest edge." Noah nodded grimly. "There's a maintenance passage that cuts across to the western tunnels. It'll be tight, but we can make it, this way." As they splashed through a narrow side passage, taking a shortcut to intercept the bears, neither man noticed the small group of late-night commuters who had been stranded in the station by the power outage. Led by security guards with flashlights, the group was being evacuated through the same western exit that Noah and Marcus were hoping to direct the bears toward. Above ground, the storm continued to rage. Lightning split the sky, and thunder shook the buildings. In her darkened apartment, Olivia paced with Luna in her arms, the baby's cries having finally subsided into hiccuping sobs. She peered out the window at the chaos below. Emergency vehicles with flashing lights, police cordoning off the subway entrance, a news van already on the scene despite the late hour and terrible weather. "Your daddy's down there," she whispered to Luna, her own heart racing with fear for Marcus. "And he's trying to save a bear cub and its mama." Luna's tiny hand patted Olivia's cheek, almost as if in reassurance. The baby's eyes, so like her father's, seemed to hold wisdom far beyond her months. For a brief, strange moment, Olivia felt as though her daughter understood exactly what was happening, and wasn't afraid. "You've been trying to tell us something all along, haven't you?" Olivia said softly, an idea forming in her mind. "You heard that cub crying when none of us could." Luna babbled something in response, her little face serious. Making a sudden decision, Olivia grabbed her raincoat and wrapped Luna securely in a warm blanket. "We're going to help Daddy," she told her daughter, surprised at her own determination. "I don't know how, but we're going to help." Meanwhile, in the flooding tunnels beneath the city, a mother bear carried her cub toward what she hoped was safety, followed by two men determined to ensure they found their way home. And somewhere between them, a group of unsuspecting commuters was about to come face to face with one of nature's most formidable mothers, unless someone could prevent the potentially deadly encounter. The night's most extraordinary moments were still to come, as humans and bears, adults and children, would find their worlds colliding in ways that would challenge everything they thought they knew about the boundaries between civilization and wilderness, between human and animal understanding. Officer Elena Ramirez gripped her flashlight tightly as she directed evacuees up the western exit stairs of Westbrook Station. The power outage had left the subway in near darkness, with only emergency lighting casting ghostly shadows across the platforms. The storm had knocked out more than just electricity. The city's emergency response systems were overwhelmed, communications were spotty, and rising waters threatened multiple subway lines. "Keep moving," she called to the group of about 15 commuters who had been stranded when the train stopped running. "Follow the blue emergency lights to the surface." Among the evacuees was Dr. Samira Patel, a child psychologist returning home after a late hospital shift. She noticed Officer Ramirez's tense expression and fell into step beside her at the rear of the group. "Is everything okay?" she asked quietly, sensing there was more to the evacuation than just the storm and power outage. Officer Ramirez hesitated, weighing the need for calm against the potential danger. "There have been reports of a wild animal in the tunnels," she admitted in a low voice. "Probably nothing, but we need to get everyone out as a precaution." Dr. Patel's eyes widened. "What kind of wild animal?" Before Ramirez could answer, her radio crackled to life. "All units be advised. Animal Control confirms possible bear sighting near western maintenance tunnels. Repeat, bear sighting. Keep all civilians clear of the area. Animal Control ETA 20 minutes due to road conditions." The nearby evacuees who overheard the transmission began murmuring anxiously, their pace quickening toward the exit. "A bear?" Dr. Patel whispered incredulously. "In the subway?" "Just keep moving," Officer Ramirez repeated, her hand instinctively moving to her service weapon. She'd been trained to handle many crisis situations, but a bear encounter in a crowded subway station wasn't one of them. Meanwhile, Olivia had made her way down to the street level, Luna bundled securely against her chest in a baby carrier beneath her raincoat. The police had set up a perimeter around the subway entrance, but the chaos of the storm, coupled with the multiple emergencies happening across the city, had stretched their resources thin. Taking advantage of a momentary gap in attention, Olivia slipped past the barricade and hurried down the steps into the station, her heart pounding with a mixture of fear and determination. "Marcus," she whispered into the darkness, unsure where to go but driven by an instinct she couldn't explain. Luna, surprisingly calm now, made soft cooing sounds against her chest. The station was eerily quiet, most of the commuters already evacuated. Olivia followed the emergency lights, moving deeper into the station, listening for any sound that might lead her to Marcus. As she reached the westernmost platform, Luna suddenly became agitated, squirming and making the same strange whimpering sounds from earlier. "What is it, baby girl?" Olivia whispered, patting her daughter soothingly. Luna's little hand emerged from the raincoat, pointing insistently toward a maintenance door marked "Authorized Personnel Only." Olivia hesitated, then pushed against the door. It swung open easily, the security systems disabled by the power outage. Beyond lay a dimly lit service corridor. Marcus wouldn't go through here, she murmured to herself, but Luna's insistent noises made her reconsider. Swallowing her fear, Olivia stepped through the door and into the unknown. Deep in the western tunnels, Marcus and Noah had managed to get ahead of the mother bear and her cub. They stood at a crucial junction where 3 passages met, one leading up to the western exit where the evacuees were heading, one continuing deeper into the tunnel system, and one small maintenance passage that connected to the drainage system at the edge of the city. "We need to block off the exit path," Marcus said, shining his flashlight around frantically. "If the bears go that way, they'll run straight into people, and a cornered bear with a cub will attack," Noah finished grimly. "I've got some caution barriers in the maintenance closet around the corner. We can set them up across the exit passage, try to funnel the bears toward the drainage tunnel." "Hurry," Marcus urged, his ears straining for the sound of approaching bears. The water swirled around their calves now, rising steadily with the continuing storm. Noah splashed off toward the closet while Marcus remained at the junction, trying to think of a way to make the drainage tunnel more appealing to the bears. He remembered something from his wildlife training. Bears had an incredible sense of smell, far more powerful than their eyesight. If he could somehow create a scent trail. From his veterinary kit, Marcus pulled out a small vial of honey, a trick he sometimes used to get reluctant animals to take medicine. Working quickly, he squeezed drops of honey along the walls of the drainage passage, creating a line leading away from the other tunnels. "Let's hope your nose works better than your sense of direction," he muttered, imagining what his colleagues would say if they could see him now, leaving a honey trail for a bear in a subway tunnel during a flood. Just then, Noah returned, dragging several folding caution barriers. Together, they set them up across the passage leading to the western exit, creating a visual blockade. "It's not much," Noah admitted, "but maybe it'll guide them away from—" A deep, splashing sound from the tunnel behind them cut him off. The mother bear was approaching, her cub still clutched gently in her jaws. Both men pressed themselves against the wall, their hearts hammering. "Please take the drainage tunnel," Marcus whispered, as if the bear could understand his plea. "Please." The massive animal appeared at the junction, water streaming from her dark fur. She paused, sensing the presence of humans, a low growl rumbling in her throat. The cub whimpered weakly, still exhausted from its ordeal. For what felt like an eternity, the bear stood motionless, assessing the situation. Her keen nose twitched, picking up the scent of honey. She looked toward the drainage tunnel, then at the caution barriers, then back at the 2 men pressed against the wall. "That's it," Marcus encouraged softly. "That way leads home, to the forest." As if understanding, the bear took one step toward the drainage tunnel, then another. Suddenly, a new sound echoed through the tunnels. Voices. Human voices coming from beyond the caution barriers. The evacuees were approaching. The mother bear froze, her muscles tensing visibly. She turned toward the sound, her protective instincts flaring. Marcus's heart sank. If the bear charged toward the evacuees— "No, no, no," he breathed, desperately trying to think of a way to divert the bear's attention back to the drainage tunnel. Then, from yet another direction, came a sound that stopped everyone in their tracks. The clear, distinctive cry of a human baby. Luna. Marcus's blood ran cold as he recognized his daughter's voice. "Olivia," he called out, forgetting all about staying quiet. "Olivia, stay back." The mother bear swung her massive head toward the new sound, clearly agitated by the increasing number of threats surrounding her. She set her cub down on a raised section of the tunnel floor and positioned herself protectively in front of it, facing the direction of Luna's cries. Olivia emerged from a side passage, Luna strapped to her chest. She froze when she saw the scene before her. The flooding tunnel, her husband and Noah pressed against the wall, and less than 20 feet away, a massive black bear in a defensive posture. "Olivia," Marcus said in a carefully controlled voice, "don't move. There's a mother bear with her cub. We're trying to guide them out through the drainage tunnel." Olivia nodded slightly, pulling her raincoat more securely around Luna, who had suddenly gone quiet. The baby's eyes were wide, fixed on the bear and her cub with what looked surprisingly like recognition. The bear, however, was growing increasingly agitated. The sounds of the approaching evacuees grew louder, and the water continued to rise. The animal paced back and forth in front of her cub, unsure which threat to face, which direction to take. "We're running out of time," Noah whispered. "Any minute now, those people are going to come around that corner and all hell will break loose." Marcus looked desperately from the bear to his wife and child, his mind racing through options. They were balanced on a knife's edge. One wrong move could lead to disaster. Then his eyes fell on Luna, who was making an unusual gesture with her tiny hands. She was opening and closing her fingers while making a soft sound, almost like she was trying to communicate with the bear cub. "Wait," Marcus whispered, a wild idea forming in his mind. "Noah, don't move. Olivia, bring Luna a little closer, slowly." "Are you insane?" Olivia hissed, instinctively tightening her hold on their daughter. "Trust me," Marcus pleaded. I think Luna might be the key to this." Something in his voice convinced Olivia. With excruciating slowness, she took 2 small steps forward, angling her body so that Luna was visible but still protected. The baby continued her strange hand movements, making soft cooing sounds unlike anything her parents had heard from her before. The mother bear's ears twitched, her attention now fully focused on the human baby. To everyone's astonishment, the bear's aggressive posture softened slightly. She tilted her massive head, as if listening to something only she could hear. Behind her, the bear cub struggled to its feet and made a similar sound back to Luna. A soft whimper that seemed to match the baby's tone. The 2 youngest beings in the tunnel were communicating in some primal language that transcended species. "I don't believe it," Noah breathed, his eyes wide with wonder. Indigenous cultures around the world believe that children, especially infants, retain a connection to the natural world that adults have lost, Marcus whispered, barely daring to hope. "They say babies can still speak the language of animals because they haven't yet learned to dismiss it as impossible." Whatever was happening, it was working. The mother bear had relaxed her threatening stance, though she remained protectively near her cub. Luna continued her strange sounds, her eyes locked with the cub's in an exchange that seemed almost deliberate. Then Luna did something that made her parents' hearts nearly stop. She pointed clearly toward the drainage tunnel, the same passage Marcus had been trying to guide the bears toward. The mother bear followed the baby's gesture, looking toward the drainage passage. She sniffed the air, picking up the honey scent Marcus had laid down. After a moment of hesitation that felt like an eternity, the bear returned to her cub, gently picked it up by the scruff of its neck, and, to the human's immense relief, began lumbering toward the drainage tunnel. "It's working," Marcus whispered, hardly daring to breathe, but their relief was short-lived. Just as the mother bear reached the entrance to the drainage tunnel, a new complication arose. The tunnel itself was beginning to flood more severely, water now gushing from it rather than merely rising. The storm was intensifying above ground, overwhelming the drainage system. The bear halted, clearly reluctant to enter the rushing water with her weakened cub. She turned back, confused and increasingly agitated again. "No, no," Marcus groaned. They were so close. At that moment, the voices from beyond the caution barriers grew loud enough to distinguish words. "This way." "The exit should be just ahead," called a woman's authoritative voice. Officer Ramirez leading the evacuees. "We need a new plan, fast," Noah said urgently. "If those people come through those barriers—" Luna let out a sudden sharp cry, different from her earlier sounds. It was followed immediately by an answering deep rumble that shook the entire tunnel. For a terrifying moment, Marcus thought it was the mother bear responding aggressively, but then he realized it wasn't the bear at all. It was the tunnel itself. "Structural weakening," Noah shouted, recognizing the sound from his years of experience. "The flood is compromising the tunnel integrity. We need to get out, all of us now." As if to emphasize his point, a large chunk of concrete broke loose from the ceiling and crashed into the water nearby, sending up a spray that startled the bear. She roared, her patience finally snapping under the multiple threats. In that critical moment, Luna made the same pointing gesture again, but this time toward a different passage, a maintenance shaft that sloped upward, away from the flooding. It wasn't the ideal route back to the forest, but it would lead away from both the flooding and the approaching evacuees. The mother bear, driven by instinct and desperation, made her choice. With her cub secure in her jaws, she charged, not toward the humans, but toward the maintenance shaft Luna had indicated. The humans pressed themselves against the walls as nearly half a ton of frightened bear thundered past them, disappearing up the sloping passage. "Where does that shaft lead?" Olivia asked breathlessly, clutching Luna tightly. Noah's face was grim. "Eventually, to a maintenance building about 3 blocks from here. But there are a dozen turns and junctions before then. They could end up anywhere in the system." Another ominous rumble shook the tunnel, and more debris fell from the ceiling. The water was now knee-deep and rising rapidly. The evacuees, Marcus remembered suddenly. They're heading straight for a collapsing tunnel. He splashed toward the caution barriers, shouting warnings. "Turn back! The tunnel is collapsing. Go back the way you came." Officer Ramirez appeared at the barrier, her flashlight beam cutting through the gloom. The old ventilation building on Maple Street loomed dark and imposing in the storm, its brick walls slick with rain, broken windows like vacant eyes staring down at the street. The police SUV pulled up alongside 2 animal control trucks that had just arrived. "They beat us here," Ramirez noted, relief evident in her voice. "Let the professionals handle it from here." But as they approached, it became clear that the animal control officers were at a standstill. They stood at a respectful distance from the building, tranquilizer guns ready but unused. "What's the situation?" Ramirez asked the lead officer, a weathered man named Rodriguez. "Bears are inside," he confirmed. "We've got visual through the ground floor windows. Mother and cub, just like reported, but—" He hesitated. "They're behaving strangely." Strangely how?" Marcus asked. "They're not trying to exit the building," Rodriguez explained. "The cub is weak, probably from its time in the tunnels. The mother has it cornered in what looks like an old office. She's guarding it, but she's not aggressive. It's almost like they're waiting for something." Luna, who had been quiet during the drive, suddenly became animated again, reaching toward the building and making those same distinctive sounds. The animal control officer stared at the baby in confusion, but Marcos was beginning to understand. "They're waiting for her," he said quietly. "Somehow, Luna guided them here, and now they're waiting for her again." "That's absurd," one of the animal control officers scoffed. "We need to tranquilize them and transport them back to the forest before they hurt someone or themselves." Dr. Patel stepped forward. "From a scientific perspective, what's happening here could be significant," she argued. "If this baby does have some form of communication with these bears, it could revolutionize our understanding of interspecies connection. At least give them a chance to demonstrate it." Officer Ramirez looked torn. "The safety of everyone has to be the priority." "Then let me go in," Marcus proposed. "Just me and Luna. If I'm wrong, if they become aggressive, you can intervene immediately." "Absolutely not," Ramirez and Olivia said simultaneously. "You can't take our baby in there with a wild bear," Olivia added, holding Luna protectively. Luna continued her strange vocalizations, growing increasingly insistent. To everyone's shock, answering sounds came from within the building, the distinctive whimpers of the bear cub. "They are communicating," Dr. Patel whispered, her scientific skepticism battling with the evidence before her eyes. Marcus looked at Olivia, a silent plea in his eyes. She looked down at Luna, then back at her husband. "You really believe she can help?" "I believe our daughter has a gift we don't understand," Marcus said quietly, "and I believe those bears are as scared as we are. They just want to go home." After a moment of internal struggle, Olivia made her decision. "We go together, all three of us. I'm not letting Luna out of my arms." Officer Ramirez started to object, but Rodriguez, the animal control officer, intervened. "In 20 years handling wildlife, I've never seen anything like what's happening here," he admitted. "If there's a chance to resolve this without stress to the animals or risk to my officers, I'm willing to try something unorthodox." A plan was quickly formulated. Marcus, Olivia with Luna, and Rodriguez would enter the building through the main door. Animal control officers would be positioned at all possible exits with tranquilizer guns as a last resort. Dr. Patel would observe and document from just inside the door, with Officer Ramirez beside her. "No sudden movements, no loud noises," Marcus instructed as they prepared to enter. "Let Luna lead the interaction." "I still can't believe we're doing this," Ramirez muttered. "Letting a baby direct a bear encounter." Rodriguez checked his tranquilizer gun one last time. "Animals sense things we don't," he said simply. "Maybe babies do too." The group entered the abandoned building slowly, flashlight beams cutting through years of dust and cobwebs. The air was thick with the musty scent of abandonment, overlaid now with the powerful wild odor of bear. They followed the sounds of the cub to a large room that might once have been a break room or small office. The mother bear was there, her massive form crouched protectively beside her cub in the corner of the room. Her dark eyes reflected the flashlight beams, watchful, but not panicked. The cub lay on its side, still weak from its ordeal, but alert enough to lift its head when they entered. Everyone froze, the humans hardly daring to breathe. This was the moment of truth. Luna, however, showed no fear at all. She squirmed in Olivia's arms, making those same soft cooing sounds from the tunnel. To everyone's amazement, she reached her tiny arms out toward the bears, as if asking to be brought closer. "She wants to approach them," Olivia whispered, her voice tight with fear and wonder. "Absolutely not," Rodriguez hissed, his hand tightening on his tranquilizer gun. But the mother bear's reaction stopped them all. Instead of showing aggression at the human's proximity to her vulnerable cub, she relaxed her posture slightly. She made a soft huffing sound that was almost like recognition. "This is unprecedented," Dr. Patel whispered from the doorway, frantically taking notes on her phone. "The bear recognizes the baby." Luna continued her sounds, which now had an almost musical quality to them. The cub responded with similar vocalizations, creating a bizarre duet between human infant and bear cub. Slowly, carefully, with Marcus close beside her, Olivia took 2 small steps forward, bringing Luna a few feet closer to the bears. The mother bear watched them intently but made no aggressive move. "She trusts us," Marcus realized aloud, "because of Luna. She remembers that Luna helped guide them out of the tunnel." In that extraordinary moment of cross-species connection, the storm outside reached its climax. A tremendous crack of lightning struck somewhere nearby, and the resulting thunderclap shook the old building to its foundations. The power of the storm had been undermining the already neglected structure, and now, with a groaning protest of ancient wood and brick, part of the ceiling began to collapse. "Look out!" Rodriguez shouted as debris rained down, separating the humans from the bears with a pile of broken beams and plaster. In the chaos that followed, the mother bear let out a roar of fear and confusion. The cub cried out, its voice once again taking on that note of distress that had first drawn Luna's attention hours ago in the apartment. "Is everyone okay?" Ramirez called from the doorway, her flashlight beam dancing wildly across the dusty air. "We're fine," Marcus called back, checking Olivia and Luna for injuries. Luna, remarkably, wasn't crying or frightened. Instead, she was still focused intently on where the bears had been, now hidden behind the fallen debris. Rodriguez was already calling for backup on his radio. "Building collapse, potential bear aggression situation. Need immediate—" "Wait," Marcus interrupted, listening intently. Through the dust and confusion, through the renewed howling of the storm outside, he could hear something that made his blood run cold. The sound of the bear cub in severe distress, and a different sound from the mother. Not rage, but pain. "The bears are hurt," he said urgently. "We need to get to them." "It's too dangerous," Rodriguez countered. "The building could come down completely any minute." But Luna had begun to cry now, not in fear, but in what sounded to Marcus like distress for her animal counterparts. The same empathetic distress that had alerted them to the trapped cub in the first place. "The collapse must have injured one or both of them," Marcus insisted. "We can't just leave them." Olivia looked down at their daughter, then at her husband. The connection she'd witnessed between Luna and the bears had shaken her understanding of the world, but she couldn't deny what she'd seen. "Luna's trying to tell us something again," she said softly. "They need our help." Rodriguez hesitated, torn between protocol and the extraordinary situation unfolding before him. "If the mother is injured, she'll be twice as dangerous," he warned. "Or she'll recognize that we're trying to help, like she did in the tunnel," Marcus countered. "Let me try. I'm a vet. I might be able to help them." After a moment's deliberation, Rodriguez nodded reluctantly. "But I'm coming with you, tranquilizer ready. First sign of aggression, I shoot, understood?" Together, Marcus and Rodriguez carefully made their way around the pile of debris, while Olivia, Luna, Dr. Patel, and Officer Ramirez watched anxiously from a safer position. What they found on the other side made even Rodriguez gasp in dismay. A heavy wooden beam had fallen across the mother bear's lower body, pinning her to the floor. She was alive, but clearly in pain, her powerful front legs scrambling uselessly against the smooth floor as she tried to free herself. The cub, amazingly unhurt, was nuzzling its mother's face and whimpering. "This changes everything," Rodriguez said quietly, lowering his tranquilizer gun. "She can't hurt anyone like this, but we need a crew with heavy equipment to free her." Marcus was already assessing the bear's condition with a professional eye. The beam doesn't appear to have crushed her. The angle kept most of the weight off. But she could have internal injuries, and the stress alone could kill her. He looked back at the others. "Luna needs to help calm her while we work." Against all conventional wisdom, against every protocol and procedure, Olivia carefully brought Luna closer to the trapped bear, staying just far enough away to be out of reach of those powerful front paws. Luna's crying stopped immediately, replaced by those same soft musical sounds from before. The cub responded in kind, and even the injured mother seemed to relax slightly, her frantic struggles subsiding as she fixed her intelligent eyes on the human baby. While Luna kept the bear's attention, Marcus and Rodriguez quickly assembled a makeshift lever system using debris from the collapse. Other rescue personnel had arrived outside, but the building's condition was too unstable to bring in heavy equipment. They would have to free the bear with what they had on hand. "On 3, Marcus instructed Rodriguez, positioning their improvised lever under one end of the beam. 1, 2, 3. Both men strained with all their strength, muscles trembling with the effort. Slowly, agonizingly, the beam began to lift. The mother bear seemed to understand what was happening. Instead of panicking, she remained still, waiting for her chance. "A little more," Marcus gasped, his arms burning with effort. Luna suddenly emitted a sharp, commanding sound, different from her earlier vocalizations. To everyone's astonishment, the mother bear responded by gathering her strength and heaving herself sideways just as the beam lifted a crucial few more inches. With a massive effort, she pulled herself free, rolling away from the trap with a speed that belied her size and injury. Rodriguez dropped the lever and raised his tranquilizer gun instinctively, but Marcus put a hand on his arm. "Wait," he urged. "Just wait." The mother bear had regained her feet, albeit unsteadily. She shook herself, checking her injured hindquarters with a twist of her neck. The cub hurried to her side, pressing against her front leg. Everyone in the room held their breath, waiting for the bear's next move. What happened next would be debated, analyzed, and marveled at for years to come. The mother bear, instead of fleeing or attacking, turned her massive head toward Luna. For a long moment, bear and baby locked eyes in what could only be described as mutual recognition. Then, with deliberate care, the bear dipped her head in what looked remarkably like a nod of acknowledgement. Luna responded with a happy gurgle, waving her tiny hand in what almost seemed like goodbye. The mother bear gently took her cub by the scruff of its neck, and with one last look at the humans who had helped her, limped toward a broken window at the back of the room, an easy exit to the alley behind the building. "Let them go," Marcus said softly as Rodriguez raised his gun again. "They're heading back toward the forest edge. It's less than a mile from here, mostly through abandoned industrial lots. They'll make it." As the bears disappeared into the stormy night, an odd silence fell over the room, broken only by the continuing rumble of thunder and the patter of rain. Everyone present had witnessed something they couldn't quite explain, a connection between species that defied conventional understanding. Dr. Patel was the first to speak. "In all my years studying child development, I've never seen anything like this," she said, her scientific mind already racing with the implications. "The way your daughters seem to communicate with those bears, it challenges everything we think we know about interspecies interaction." Officer Ramirez shook her head in wonder. "If I hadn't seen it with my own eyes, I never would have believed it." Outside, the storm was finally beginning to subside, the violent downpour softening to a gentle rain. Emergency crews were assessing the building's structure, and news vans had begun to gather, drawn by reports of the bears and the baby who somehow communicated with them. Olivia cradled Luna close, looking down at her daughter with new eyes. "Do you think she'll always have this ability? This connection to animals?" Marcus watched as Luna's eyes began to droop, the excitement and strain of the night finally catching up to her. "I don't know," he admitted. "Many indigenous cultures believe that very young children retain a connection to the natural world that most of us lose as we grow up and are taught what is possible and what isn't. Maybe Luna will forget this as she gets older." "Or maybe," Dr. Patel suggested quietly, "she'll help us remember what we've forgotten, that the boundaries between human and animal aren't as firm as we like to believe." As they made their way out of the crumbling building, Luna fell asleep in Olivia's arms, her face peaceful. Outside, the first hints of dawn were appearing on the horizon, the storm clouds breaking up to reveal patches of pink and gold sky. A new day was beginning, a day that would bring questions, explanations, scientific inquiries, and media attention. But for now, as Marcus put his arm around his wife and sleeping daughter, he was content to marvel at the mystery they had witnessed. Somewhere in the brightening morning, a mother bear and her cub were making their way home, guided by ancient instincts and helped by an unexpected ally, a human baby who had somehow bridged the divide between two worlds. The story of Luna Mason and the subway bears would spread far beyond their city, challenging conventional wisdom and inspiring researchers, conservationists, and ordinary people alike to reconsider the complex relationships between humans and the natural world. But that was all to come. For now, in the quiet moments of early morning, a family who had glimpsed something extraordinary made their way home, forever changed by a night when the smallest voice had made the biggest difference. 3 months later, the autumn leaves crunched beneath Marcus's boots as he led Luna and Olivia along the forest trail. Blackwood Forest was particularly beautiful this time of year, the canopy ablaze with red and gold, sunlight filtering through in dappled patterns across the forest floor. "Are you sure this is a good idea?" Olivia asked, adjusting Luna's little knit cap. At 9 months old now, their daughter was more alert and aware than ever, her bright eyes taking in the forest around them with unmistakable delight. "Doctor, Patel thinks it might help us understand what happened that night," Marcus replied, checking the GPS coordinates on his phone. "And Ranger Collins said there have been consistent sightings of a mother bear and cub in this area." Following the events of what the media had dubbed the miracle of subway bears, Luna had become something of a local celebrity. Scientists, researchers, and spiritual leaders of various indigenous tribes had all expressed interest in the baby who could seemingly communicate with animals. Dr. Patel had been conducting gentle observational studies of Luna's interactions with animals at the conservation center where Marcus worked, documenting what appeared to be an unusual level of empathetic connection. "Here we are," Marcus said, stopping in a small clearing. "This is where the rangers have been leaving food supplements for the rehabilitating wildlife. If our bears are anywhere nearby, they might visit." Olivia settled on a fallen log, positioning Luna on her lap. "And you're sure they'll remember her, after all this time?" "Bears have excellent memories," Marcus assured her, though in truth, he wasn't certain of anything anymore. The night of the storm had shaken his scientific understanding of the world, opening his mind to possibilities he would have dismissed before. They waited quietly, Luna contentedly playing with a maple leaf, the forest alive with the sounds of birds and small creatures going about their business. An hour passed, then another. Marcus was beginning to think they should head back when Luna suddenly went very still. She dropped her leaf and turned her head toward a dense thicket about 30 yards away, making the same distinctive sounds they remembered from that extraordinary night. "Marcus," Olivia whispered, her arms tightening instinctively around Luna. The bushes rustled, and a small brown shape emerged. The bear cub, now visibly healthier and bigger than it had been during its subway ordeal. It paused at the edge of the clearing, nose twitching as it caught their scent. And then, with majestic deliberation, the mother bear appeared behind her cub. She stood tall on her hind legs for a moment, surveying the humans in her territory. There was no sign of injury from the building collapse. She had healed well in the months since. "Don't move," Marcus breathed, though he felt no fear, only a profound sense of wonder. Luna let out a delighted squeal, reaching her hands toward the bears in unmistakable recognition. The cub responded with a soft whimper, taking a tentative step forward before its mother gently nudged it back with her snout. For a long, breathtaking moment, human and bear families regarded each other across the clearing, separated by species and language, yet connected by something ancient and wordless. The mother bear dropped back to all fours and nudged her cub gently. Together, they turned and melted back into the forest, leaving only swaying branches as evidence they had been there at all. "They remembered," Olivia whispered, tears glistening in her eyes. Luna watched the spot where the bears had disappeared, her little face solemn with an understanding that seemed far beyond her months. Then she turned to her parents with a smile that held all the simple joy of babyhood again. As they made their way back down the trail, the setting sun painting the forest in amber light, Marcus reflected on how one extraordinary night had changed everything. Scientific papers were being written, research was being conducted, and people around the world were reconsidering their relationship with the natural world. All because a baby had heard a cry that adults could not. "What do you think it means?" Olivia asked softly as they reached the edge of the forest, the lights of the city twinkling in the distance. Luna's connection to those bears. Marcus looked at his daughter, now drowsing peacefully in Olivia's arms, then at the line where forest met civilization. Two worlds existing side by side, separate yet connected in ways humans had forgotten how to see. "I think," he said carefully, "it means we have a lot more to learn, from nature, from each other, and especially from the smallest among us, who haven't yet learned what's supposed to be impossible." Luna stirred in her sleep, a smile touching her lips, as if she were dreaming of bears and tunnels, and the night she had bridged two worlds with nothing but her voice. And perhaps she was. For some connections once made can never truly be broken. They simply become part of the invisible threads that bind all living things together in the grand, mysterious tapestry of life. As the Mason family walked back toward the city, a soft, contented rumble echoed from deep within the darkening forest. A mother bear, telling her cub a story about the night they were saved by the strangest and smallest of creatures. A human child who still remembered how to speak the oldest language of all.